Good morning, good morning, good morning. We are headed out day 2, Washington, D.C. We're headed out to the White House tour. We're really excited about that. More to come. The White House is the oldest public building in the District of Columbia, and 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue is the most famous address in the United States. Every president except George Washington has conducted the government of the nation here. In the past 200 years, the White House has come to symbolize the American presidency across the world. While the Capitol represents freedom and the nation's ideals, the White House stands for the power and statesmanship of the chief executive. The White House itself has been altered, adapted, or enlarged to suit the needs of the residents and demands of a growing nation and of a more complicated world. Throughout all the changes, the basic structure has been honored. After the British burning in 1814, the house was rebuilt between 1815 and 1817 within the same walls. The state dining room was enlarged, and space for presidential staff was created in a new West Wing in 1902. A greatly weakened structure was completely rebuilt within its original walls in 1948 to 1952. However, it has remained recognizable for more than 200 years. The East Colonnade is an enclosed passage linking the East Wing to the ground floor quarter of the residence. There are exhibits of recent and historic photographs lining the walls. On the opposite are windows that overlook the Jacqueline Kennedy Garden. Between the residence and the East Wing is the Jacqueline Kennedy Garden, also known as the East Garden or First Lady's Garden. The garden is characterized by brick paths, boxwood borders, and seasonal flowers. The pergola was designed for the garden by the renowned architect I.M. Pei in 1965. East Garden Room or Booksellers area is the place where visitors to the White House enter through the East Wing and pass through the East Garden Room as they move into the residence. The East Garden Room is often referred to as the Booksellers area because the White House Historical Association has long sold its White House Guidebook and other educational resources here during public tours. Portraits of First Ladies are displayed in this space. The historic mansion. This doorway marks the entrance to the historic mansion on the site selected by the nation's first president, George Washington. The Irish-born architect James Oban won the White House design competition, and the cornerstone was laid in 1792. The skilled labor of many workers, including immigrants, enslaved persons, and free African Americans, made Oban's elegant neoclassical design a reality. President John Adams and his wife Abigail became the first occupants of the White House when they moved into the nearly completed residence in 1800. The East Wing Movie Theater. Accessible from the East Colonnade, the movie theater was first created for use as a cloakroom during the Theodore Roosevelt presidency. The current decor is inspired by theater interiors of the early 20th century and features scarlet velvet upholstered walls with a gold Greek key motif and faux grain mahogany woodwork. The club chairs with ottomans in the front row are typically reserved for the first family. The White House China Collection is a notable and important part of the historical and cultural heritage of the United States. Since the early days of the presidency, each administration has sought to acquire and display a unique set of china for official events and state dinners at the White House. The collection represents the taste, style, and personality of each presidential administration and often serves as a symbolic representation of American traditions in diplomacy. The library is one of the first rooms that the tour or event guests see upon entering the White House. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt dedicated this room to serve as the library in 1935. It now holds approximately 2,700 books, focusing primarily on American history and literature. The red color of the painted wooden chandelier, once in the New York home of American author James Fenimore Cooper, inspired the color of the shelves and fabric. The Vermeil Room. The room gets its name from the collection it showcases. Vermeil is the French term for sterling silver objects that have been coated with gold. The Vermeil Room exhibits a collection of 18th to 20th century Vermeil pieces which the White House received in 1958. The collection of 1,575 vases, ornaments, and tableware is used for display and for flower arrangements at the White House events. The China Room. Since 1918, the China Room has been used as an exhibition space for examples of fine china, glassware, or silver used in the White House or owned by first families. Most presidents, beginning with George Washington, are represented by either a personal or state service of porcelain, glass, or silver. The portrait of First Lady Grace Coolidge has hung in the room since 1952. The red of her dress provided inspiration for the lining display cabinets in red velvet. The tradition of having an official china collection for the White House began with President James Monroe in 1817. He ordered a custom-made china service that featured the presidential seal and various symbols of American patriotism. Unfortunately, this collection was destroyed during the British occupation of Washington during the War of 1812. Subsequent presidents such as Andrew Jackson and Martin Van Buren relied on rental services to provide china for official functions. It wasn't until the late 19th century that the first official White House china collection was acquired by President Rutherford B. Hayes in 1879. President Hayes wanted to end the practice of renting china and decided to purchase a service suitable for formal occasions. The Hayes service was a grand ensemble of 1,300 pieces with a simple ivory background and a vibrant gold border. The East Room. The East Room is a great ceremonial room of the White House. The largest room in the house, the East Room, extends the full length of the building north to south. It is 85 feet long and 40 feet wide. 7 presidents have lain in state in the East Room: William Henry Harrison, Zachary Taylor, Abraham Lincoln, William McKinley, Warren G. Harding, Franklin D. Roosevelt, and John F. Kennedy. White House Fact. Completed in 1797, Gilbert Stuart's painting of George Washington was the first piece of artwork purchased for the White House. On August 24, 1814, during the War of 1812, British troops invaded Washington, D.C., and First Lady Dolly Madison ordered that the portrait be carried off to safety before the White House was set on fire. The Cross Hall. The Cross Hall unites the staterooms with the East Room and the State Dining Room at opposite ends and the green, blue, and red rooms opening from the south side. The slightly arched ceiling springs from the cast plaster molding designed during the Theodore Roosevelt renovation of 1902. Although primarily a passage where guests walk to dinner and receptions, the Cross Hall is also a gallery of portraits of recent presidents. The Green Room, the first of the staterooms to be named for the color of its textiles, is furnished in the late Federal style popular in 1800. Paintings in the Green Room include portraits of presidents and first ladies and significant works by American artists. The least formal of the staterooms, the Green Room is a serene setting for small gatherings, interviews, teas, and social activities. Here's a fun White House fact. The Green Room was first made green by President Monroe in 1818. This is one of a pair of gilded bronze French candelabra with military trophies in relief on the base. This was placed in the Oval Room of James Monroe in 1817. The pair reside on an East Room mantel today. The Blue Room is distinguished by its central location, elegant oval shape, and striking vista through the south portico. Situated directly opposite the north door, the room is 40 feet long and 18 feet high. The Blue Room is often used for receptions, and during the holiday season, the official White House Christmas tree stands in its center. President James Monroe furnished the house in 1817 and acquired many pieces that are in the room today, including the famous gilded Bellagio suite. The Blue Room is one of 4 ovals in the White House complex. The others are the Diplomatic Reception Room on the ground floor, the Yellow Oval Room on the second floor, and the Oval Office in the West Wing. Red Room. The Red Room provides a richly formal setting for teas, small receptions, and meetings. The Red Room, the last of the staterooms to be named for a color, was boldly decorated with red fabrics in 1845 during the presidency of James K. Polk. Today, the Red Room furnishings are in the American Empire or Grecian style that was popular in the early 19th century and inspired originally by archaeological findings in Greece, Rome, and Egypt. The Red Room has always been popular with the first families and at the beginning was used as an everyday part of the house. John Adams made it a breakfast room, an informal combination sitting and eating room on the order of today's family's rooms. Thomas Jefferson and James Madison converted it into a formal drawing room, in the latter case designed by Benjamin Henry Latrobe, to suit First Lady Dolly Madison's taste. This room and the adjacent Blue Room and the State Dining Room were centrally heated from the basement below in 1809 when used by President and Mrs. Madison as a suite for entertaining. More than 150 years later, President and Mrs. Kennedy incorporated the suite similarly for small dinner parties and receptions. Richard Nixon served the Thanksgiving Day dinner to his family in the Red Room in 1970. The State Dining Room, the second largest room in the White House, is the setting for state dinners when a head of state is entertained, as well as for official dinners when the guest of honor is a prime minister, ambassador, or private citizen. The room's oak paneling installed by Theodore Roosevelt to suggest the Georgian architecture of the 1790s when the White House was built was badly damaged when it was removed and then reinstalled during the Truman renovation of 1948 to 52. To cover the scars, the walls have been painted ever since. During our visit, the State Dining Room had been transformed into a press room because the president was due to come down to sign a bill within an hour of our appointment. The Grand Staircase. Connecting the state floor to the first family's private quarters, the Grand Staircase is used as the formal entrance for state dinners. The President, First Lady, the visiting head of state, and their guests descend the stairs as the Marine Band plays Hail to the Chief, pausing at the landing for photographers before proceeding to form a receiving line.